The Xbox Series S is possibly the most beloved console by people all over the world due to its low price. However, it's been 4 years since its launch, and perhaps its performance is no longer the best. Additionally, I've heard many people refer to this console as the burden of the new generation. So, seeing this, I turned my Xbox Series S back on to see how it performs. And I'll simply say, you'll be in for both good and bad surprises. So watch the entire video, because what you'll see today can't be found on any other channel. Some may doubt the performance of this little console, but look, over time, I thought it would worsen, but no. Running titles like Fortnite, I didn't notice any FPS drops. It was incredible because most of the time, we hovered around a stable 120 FPS, fully taking advantage of my 144 Hz monitor as much as possible. Clearly, there are parts where the performance will drop due to areas and the number of players, but that's normal, especially for PC users. But the thing is, while there are drops, it's not a big deal. At most, you'll drop to around 90 FPS. The performance might be good in this title, but the console's storage is not. Since its launch, it has been heavily criticized for having 512 GB, which is already a small amount of space, but we can only use 364 GB of it. It really is a small amount of space considering that the average game size is around 100 GB. However, it's important to acknowledge that you won't be able to have 10 away games and 8 competitive games, but you will be able to have 2 heavy games and about 3 lighter ones, which is acceptable. The truth is that the solution for this was to release the carbon black version, which I don't recommend, especially since it's going to be discontinued soon due to the release of the Xbox Series S Robot White. It's the same, only with 1 TB of storage and in white. Better buy an external hard drive, whether it's HDD or SSD, and store your games there. We did that on the channel before, and it works great. Speaking of Game Pass, we all know it's one of the best things Xbox offers because it's very affordable, costing just $5 to $10, similar to a Netflix or adult subscription. But the thing is, it brings us a variety of games, from freaking Minecraft to GTA 5. And what's appreciated is that Xbox gives the same support to Series X and Series S. So, the day they release a super heavy game, like GTA 6 for example, you don't need to worry. You'll be able to run it on the Series S too. They might lower the graphics a bit or optimize the game more for the S version, but this console will allow us to run all the games for the next 5 years. And that's a fact. Just look at the case of the PS4. How many years did that console last running titles? In fact, it still runs games from the PS5. But let's not get off topic. If you want to know more about the PS4, check out the video I left above. I mentioned before that Game Pass is cheap, but I'm poor and couldn't buy it to try different games. However, I installed Warzone, which is a heavy title that can cause problems even on the best PCs. But on Series S, it runs magnificently. There are no stutters, and I didn't see any clay-like textures. In terms of FPS, I don't have an exact number, but I felt it was between 90 to 120 FPS. I know this because I saw some performance tests on YouTube, and it ran just like that. So yes, you can be a competitive player. You have to keep in mind that if you are a user who is a fan of console exclusives, the Series S is the worst option, because many Xbox exclusives will be released on other consoles. So keep that in mind. For exclusives, buy a Nintendo Switch. You won't regret it. But what the Series S really excels at is that it's a transformer. It can turn into a gaming PC. And no, I'm not talking nonsense. We've seen many times on the channel that we can connect a keyboard, mouse, cameras, and microphones, and it detects them very well. And if you're wondering, no, there is no latency like on the damn PS4 or FPS drops like on it. Adding to that, for future streamers, the Series S provides excellent performance streaming games like Fortnite. One would expect the FPS to drop, but no, my friend, they stay at 120 the whole time. We need to clarify to new users that not all games will run at 120 FPS at 1440p as indicated on the box. That's more false than the love she has for me. There are certain titles, like Warzone, Doom Eternal, Apex Legends, and some indie games, where you can achieve 120 FPS. However, for most 888 games, you will get 60 FPS at 1080p, or 30 FPS at 1440p. If this isn't clear from the description, I'll leave a link to the list of games that are compatible. Speaking a bit more about graphics, they are really good in all games, with graphical quality being very similar to a PlayStation 5. However, some games are not updated for the Xbox Series S and are stuck on the One S version. Those games will look the same on the Series S. There are a few games affected by this, but it's not a huge deal. But something very important is that some people think this console reads discs, but it doesn't. It's 100% digital. I partly hate that because I like collecting CDs, but for some, it's perfect because they buy games online and only need to worry about storage. Speaking of storage, don't worry. I'm not going to throw more hate. On the contrary, since this console has an M.2 SSD, loading times both in the system and when entering or switching games will be very fast. In fact, it's one of the best advantages of buying a next-generation console. If you try it, you won't regret it. And shifting the topic a bit to the PS5, many might wonder which is better. Certainly, in terms of power, the PlayStation is better, but what you see on the Series S, you see on the PS5 as well. Clearly, not the exclusives, but you can play them for a much lower price because an Xbox, at least the 5 and 12 GB version, costs $300. Speaking of US prices, because, for example, here in my country, Colombia, I usually see it at $350, which is still a great price since the PS5 digital is priced at $500 in Latin America. In first world countries, it's cheaper, but you can often find it on sale for almost $250. So keep an eye out in your stores. But tell me, would you buy an Xbox Series S in 2024?